Welcome back everybody, my name is Tucker, and in today's video I'm bringing back the brackets. I've been wanting to do this again ever since I did the first one like a week and a half ago or so at this point. Over on TLSM they came out with another bracket, this one being the 6th man bracket. There's 32 players here and we go through and pick which one that I think is the better 6th man. Now to be clear, a couple of things that I didn't clarify before the last bracket video. This is not my bracket. I didn't come up with it. Every opinion that you see from here on out is my own, but I did not come up with a bracket. And then as always, I will leave the link to the bracket, at least the tweet for the bracket down below in the description. Okay, here we go. So we start off in the top left corner with Montrezl Harrell, the 1 seed against Ben McLemore. The 1 and 8 seeds are typically not that difficult. This one is definitely going to be Montrezl Harrell. However, the 4-5s can be difficult. Eric Gordon and Donte DiVincenzo. I do really like Donte DiVincenzo and I think he's going to be a good player moving forward, but Eric Gordon is just a more proven player at this point. He's had some shooting struggles for the last like year and a half to 2 years, at least compared to when he first got to Houston, but I still like him better as a player, so we're going to go with Eric Gordon. Moving on now to the 3-6 matchup in this bracket, Terrence Ross and Seth Curry. And this is actually a pretty close one because Seth Curry has been playing really well for the Mavs, at least on the last like 20 to 30 games. And Terrence Ross is a talented player, but it's kind of a toss-up for me, to be honest. I think I'm going to go Seth Curry here, honestly. I mean, Terrence Ross is a good player, can really shoot the ball, but because of how well Seth Curry has been playing lately for the Mavs, obviously the league is suspended, but the last 20 or 30 games since Dwight Powell's been out has been shooting the ball extremely well. I'm going with Steph Curry, the first real upset of the bracket to this point. Next up now, Spencer Dinwiddie, a 2 seed against Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. I don't think that one's all that close. I understand that I'm a Nets fan and maybe there's some bias there, but I really don't think that it's all that close and that Spencer Dinwiddie is a better 6th man than Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Moving on now to Buddy Hield versus Furkan Korkmaz. Buddy Hield is definitely a very strong seed in this bracket because he was, I wouldn't say recently moved to 6th man, but around mid-season, the Kings decided to make the change where he was coming off the bench and they started playing a lot better with him coming off the bench, and it's pretty easy to mark him in as a player moving on here in the 1-8 matchup. Moving on now to Brandon Clark versus George Hill. And it's always so tough when you're comparing two players that aren't at the same position. Brandon Clark is having a very good rookie season, but I think I'm going to go with the more proven George Hill here. Moving on now, Jordan Clarkson and Monty Morris. I'm going to go with the 3 seed Jordan Clarkson here. I understand that Monty Morris is very good, pretty much everything that you would want out of a traditional backup point guard. But for me, Jordan Clarkson has been playing so well for the Jazz as a scorer and a playmaker, and I just think that he's been playing better, so I'm going to go with him. Moving on now, we have Marcus Smart versus Maxi Kleber. I don't really think it's close. It's going to be Marcus Smart. I do like Kleber as a floor spacer and a guy that can play multiple different roles within the front court, but the defense and the energy and the effort that Marcus Smart brings, in addition to an occasional crazy shooting night, I think he definitely is moving on here. To the other side of the bracket now, Lou Williams versus Doug McDermott. Obviously, we're going to go Lou Williams here. Davis Bertans versus Jeremy Grant. Two very different skill sets here. Bertans is one of the better shooters in the league this season for the Wizards, and Jeremy Grant is kind of a do-it-all player in the front court with versatility and defense and rebounding and rim protection. I'm going to go with Bertans just because I like the shooting better, and I feel like as a 6th man, I'd rather have someone that can score than someone that's going to come off the bench and do all these different versatile things. So I'm going to go with Bertans moving on. Next up, JJ Redick and Tyler Hero. Honestly, relatively tough because in the last bracket video, I chose Tyler Hero over John Collins. I don't remember my reasoning for that, but I remember that I did pick that. A lot of people were upset about it. But JJ Redick is a better player than Tyler Hero, and so I'm going to go with JJ Redick. Moving on now, Goran Dragic and Kobe White. Another relatively difficult one. Two guards that can really score off the bench. Dragic has been really good as a 6th man this year for the Miami Heat, and Kobe White really started to pick it up over the last few weeks before the league was suspended. But I'm still going to go with Goran Dragic here because he's just a better player at this point. Moving on now, Dennis Schroeder, who I would say relatively surprisingly is a 1 seed, has been very good off the bench for the Thunder this year, but not necessarily someone I would have expected to see as a 1 seed here. But up against Kent Bazemore, it's pretty obvious that he is going to be moving on. Next up now, Mitchell Robinson and Kyle Kuzma, two very good young players that are still kind of trying to find exactly what their role is going to be in the NBA. Mitchell Robinson is going to be an outstanding rim protector. Other parts of his game still need to develop. And Kyle Kuzma does some good things for the Lakers, but at times also looks lost out there. I honestly don't really consider either of these guys as 6 men, to be honest, but I guess I'm going to go with Mitchell Robinson here. Moving on now, Norman Powell and Patty Mills. Patty Mills is a very good veteran player, but Norman Powell provides a little bit more versatility, especially on the defensive end, so I'm going to go with him. Next up now, Derrick Rose and Josh Hart. We are going to go with Derrick Rose. Obviously, some of these teams have multiple players listed here just because there's 32 slots and only 30 teams, obviously. Okay, now we go back up to the top left. We have Montrezl Harrell up against Eric Gordon. I'm going to go Montrezl Harrell. I really like Eric Gordon, and if he was at a different part of the bracket, maybe he would have moved on further than this, but Harrell is one of the best bench players in the entire league, and so I feel like I have to go with him. Moving on now, we have Spencer Dinwiddie and Seth Curry. Again, a pick that maybe could be a little bit difficult, but the more you think about it, it's pretty obvious that Spencer Dinwiddie is a better six-man than Steph Curry. Then we've got Buddy Hield versus George Hill. Some of these are easy. We're going to go through them relatively quick. Obviously, Buddy Hield's a better six-man than George Hill. Next up now, Jordan Clarkson and Marcus Smart. I think this one is actually a little bit closer than you would think because Jordan Clarkson has been so good as a scorer and a playmaker for Utah since coming over midseason, but I'm still going to go with the defense and the versatility and the occasional shooting of Marcus Smart. Moving on there. Now back up to the top right, we have Lou Williams and we have Davis Bertans. I love Bertans, but I don't think you can go away from Lou Williams here. Next up now, we have JJ Redick and Goran Dragic as the 2 and 3 matchup. This one is pretty tough because, Dragic can still be a really effective on-ball playmaking guard, but on the other hand, JJ Redick is still one of the best shooters in the entire league. I think I'm going to go Redick just because of how good of a shooter he is, and he can play no matter what, whereas with Dragic, if you have another really good ball handler coming off the bench, maybe it doesn't work so well. So I'm going to go with JJ Redick here. Next up now, we have, where we at? Dennis Schroeder versus Mitchell Robinson. I'm going to go with Dennis Schroeder. And then we have Derrick Rose and Norman Powell. I'm going to go with Derrick Rose, again, as a scoring guard off the bench. Norman Powell, a very good player, is a versatile bench option, but I think I would rather have the offensive spark of Derrick Rose. Moving on now, we have Montrezl Harrell versus Spencer Dinwiddie, the 1 and 2 seeds of their bracket. I would love to put Spencer Dinwiddie moving on, and maybe if this was last year, it would actually be the case, but he's just not having as good a season this year statistically, and so I'm going to go with Montrezl Harrell moving into the Final Four of that bracket. Next up now, we have Buddy Hield versus Marcus Smart. Again, I think it's relatively close. It's the 1 and the 2 seed of these brackets, but because of the offense that he provides, I'm going to go with Buddy Hield. I think you can absolutely make an argument for this to be Marcus Smart, but personally, I'm going Buddy Hield. Moving on now, we have Lou Williams versus JJ Redick, the 1-3 matchup in this bracket. I'm going to go with Lou Williams. Again, it's tough to go against those two Clippers six men because of how productive they are off the bench. Even though JJ Redick is such a good shooter, Lou Williams is one of the best bench players and has multiple Six-Man of the Year awards to his name, so he kind of has to move on there. Then we have Dennis Schroeder and Derrick Rose. Obviously, to this point, every single 1 seed has made the Final Four. And this is a relatively tough decision, right? Because they're both semi-similar players, on-ball playmakers, guys that can get to the rim, not the best off-ball shooters, and also not the best defenders. I think I'm going to go with Derrick Rose because I feel a little bit more confident in his outside shooting ability at this point than I do with Dennis Schroeder, and I think everything else is relatively even, so I'm going to give the slight edge to Derrick Rose. Now here we are in the Final Four. We have Montrezl Harrell, Buddy Hield, Lou Williams, and Derrick Rose in the Final Four. Montrezl Harrell versus Buddy Hield. I don't really know what to do with this one because these are two outstanding six men, right? And both of them play starter level minutes once they come into the game, but they don't begin the game on the floor. I really like Montrezl Harrell, but I think as a player overall, I think Buddy Hield is better, and I would rather have a guard personally as my six man coming off the bench rather than a big that I feel like I have to have a guard combination with him for him to be really effective in ball screens and pick and rolls. So I am rather surprisingly, I would say, going to move Buddy Hield into the championship to go up against either Lou Williams or Derrick Rose. I'm going to go with Lou Williams here just because of the multiple six-man awards that he does have to his name. No offense to Derrick Rose, but I think as a six-man, Lou Williams is just slightly better, which sets up our championship between Buddy Hield and Lou Williams. And I think I've talked myself into Buddy Hield being the best sixth man in the entire league. And it's weird because he's been a starter for a couple of years, and so we don't really think about him as a bench guy until this season. But I think from a pure talent, scoring, shooting standpoint, he's the best player in this bracket, regardless of where he would have started. I think that he would have always been my pick to get to the championship and to win the entire thing. So in the sixth man bracket here by TLSM, I'm going to go with Buddy Hield as the winner. That was, I would say that the under 25 players were a little bit tougher because this is such like a defined role that you're casting these players in as a sixth man that it makes it a little bit easier to pick and there's less players. But I still think that it was a really interesting exercise because I don't think that I would have guessed that Buddy Hield would have been the pick just because, again, I don't think about him as a six man before doing this. I don't think that I would have picked him as the winner. Probably would have thought it would have been someone like Lou Williams or Montrezl Harrell. Obviously, you guys are more than welcome to have a different opinion than this, but this is where I'm at with my six man bracket over here on TLSM. If you would like to do one of these yourself, I will leave the link down in the description below to the tweet. And yeah, that's going to be the end of today's video. I thank you all very much for watching. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Thanks again, and I'll see you all next time.